Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We will shift gears. I do want to talk about Andy's open letter on the issue of the Super Bowl halftime show and his call for some sort of congressional investigation into the Super Bowl halftime show. And I just beg of you to tell me what exactly you want the government to do about it. Because many of you have expressed a belief that this is the proper role of government. To do something about this. As an example, I got a super text that says, "You're wrong, Matt. It's our job as a part of our society to protect morals and standards." And whose job and whose morals? The government's job? And the response was adult Americans. My thing is that, this has been going on for a long, long time, since the beginning of television. Elvis in 1956 was accused of decaying the moral fabric of the American society and destroying the lives of our young children because he gyrated on television. Now, I'm not saying that the two things are the same. What I'm saying is the sentiment and the reaction is the same. What I would suggest is that it's ultimately the parents' responsibility. Secondarily, I understand why we do want to have certain levels of standards, but the Super Bowl is no more guilty than most every other television programming I've watched on ABC, NBC, and CBS in primetime for the last 5 years. And I don't think we need to be spending taxpayer money investigating widespread twerking at the Super Bowl halftime show. I saw exactly 0 minutes of the halftime show because I knew that it was not for me. And 3565, you're right. Justin Timberlake did rip off Janet Jackson's top and did show her. He didn't show her nipple. He showed her boobie, and she had some sort of pasty over the nipple. I think it is our job to recognize that we don't need to watch this type of crap and then turn it off. And I think if the American consumer did more of that, then perhaps we would get less of it. That's my take on it. More on that coming up in just a few minutes, unless our next guest wants to speak to it. At 10 minutes after the hour, it's time to turn our attention back to a post-mortem of the Nashville Electric Service and their lack of an ability to keep the lights on. We welcome back to the show Metro Councilor Courtney Johnston. Hello, Courtney.
Hi.
How are you? Did you watch the halftime show?
I did not. I was cooking dinner.
I was going to ask if you had electricity at the time.
I did thankfully have electricity by that time, but I did not watch it, no.
Y'all had a pretty lively council meeting last evening, I think.
Yes, technically it was a joint committee meeting and not a council meeting.
What does that mean? What is that distinction? What does that
mean? We discussed no legislation. So it was a special called joint committee meeting that was outside of the normal calendar for the specific purpose of discussing the response to the storm with multiple departments.
Okay. What do you feel like we learned?
0. Nothing.
I mean, what? So you spoke to who all was there? I mean, obviously the council was there. Who all was there representing Nashville Electric?
Well, there were several board members that were in the audience. The people that spoke were the CEO, Teresa
Broyles Applin.
Yeah, I think I mess up her name all the time. And then Brent Baker. Those were the two that spoke on behalf of NES. And then we had OEM, NDOT, Metro Water Services. I feel like I'm leaving some people out. But anyway.
So what do you feel like the purpose of this meeting was?
Well, I thought that the purpose was for us to be able to ask questions, and it was. It started off more performative than anything, where they gave them, each of these department directors and the CEO, an opportunity to kind of pat themselves on the back about what they did and how they responded and all of that. And it was very, sort of, I don't know, dog and pony and sort of waste of time. And I thought about leaving. I just thought, this is silly. This is not what I was here for. And then we started having some questions that came in that were, again, more performative and a little bit of grandstanding. So,
is it still their position, and you'll have to help me fill in these gaps here, is it still the position of the Nashville Electric Service that the most consequential problem that they faced was that they had a unique ice problem that the surrounding areas did not have?
they would, to a certain extent, yes. I think they...
Do you believe that?
No.
Okay.
Well, we did have a unique ice situation because we had more trees and limbs that it stuck to. How about that?
Okay, that's fair. And that was my take on it.
Yeah.
Is that I understand that the ice impacted Nashville more than it did other areas because the other areas decided to do more tree mitigation, vegetation mitigation, tree trimming than Nashville decided to do. And if that's a decision on the part of NES, that's fine. If it's their determination that that's what their customers want, that they want these beautiful canopies that drape over the tree, the electrical lines, that's fine. My issue is that there was no recognition that because of the decisions that have been made over the last 3 years, that's going to cause you more significant issues during an ice storm than any other part of the Middle Tennessee area.
Right, your immediate issues, but then also we're looking at roughly $140 million in damage, and who's going to pay for that? Well, the ratepayer's going to pay for that, 100%.
Because they didn't trim the trees, primarily.
That was the vast majority of the cause of the damage. Were tree vegetation pulling down pulling down poles and lines, destroying the infrastructure.
At any point, did you guys get to the question about budgeting versus expenditures? Because, their own reports indicated that they spent $7 million less than they did 2 years ago on tree trimming.
Correct.
But she keeps saying we haven't gone down in the budgets.
Yes, there was a very Bill Clinton semantics. So when you budget something, I can say, I am going to budget $100 to go to dinner. But if I only spend $70, I've only spent $70. Well, but I budgeted $100. That's the difference.
Well, I don't know if anyone asked this question. Where did the money go then? If you budgeted all of that money and you didn't spend all of that money, then where did the money go?
Right. Exactly. I don't know.
I mean,
because I don't manage their budget.
It's got to go somewhere.
Right.
And my frustration, and I yell at the wrong people because the wrong people are willing to come and see me.
I don't ever take your yelling at me.
I'm not.
The first time we met, I did.
Well, I was yelling at you. But don't make me laugh. The anger that I have is that it doesn't seem that there's anyone within the bureaucratic system that can hold the people responsible. That
to me is there's a lot of talk about trying to treat the headache. I don't care so much about treating the headache. I want to cut out the brain tumor that is causing the headache. And to me, that's the problem, is this lack of true oversight and regulatory authority. And so when the only oversight around it is a 5-member politically appointed board, and I'm not saying anything negative about the people that are on the board. They are good people if you meet them individually. But historically, I mean, that's what that is just it's a politically appointed board who hires the CEO to run the company. So that's who is making operational decisions. And the board has the ability to hire and fire the CEO only.
This seems, I don't know. Why doesn't the mayor just hire the CEO?
Because that's not the way that it was set up in the charter.
So it was set up to create plausible deniability for the Metro Council and for the mayor.
So NES was actually set up before the Metro charter. It predates the charter.
Who owns NES?
Metro does.
Uh-huh. And who should be making the decisions about the operational practices of NES?
So there are several laws. There's the Metro charter. There's the predating of the setup of NES to begin with, and then there's state law as well. All of those things are true, and some of those things are conflicting.
Y'all know, is everyone aware over there that the state's about to take this over? I mean, y'all are going to...
I certainly hope so.
And they're going to take it over because no one is answerable to anyone.
Agreed.
And I guarantee you, these liberals over there on the Metro Council, and I'm not talking to one right now, but these liberals over there on the council and Freddie O'Connell, they'll start screaming and mewling and puking about the state taking over. If you will take some responsibility and take action against the people who were responsible for the suffering of Nashville, Tennessee during this ice storm, then you wouldn't have a takeover. But you're going to have a takeover because you just keep passing the button, pointing finger. Oh, we can't do anything. I mean, not you, but you know what I'm saying.
I know. Well, my frustration with it is like, and this is what I've learned in the past 6 years in service, is what I don't understand is why is it so hard to just do the right thing and be honest? And for whatever reason, that is a common theme throughout. And I feel like people are not stupid. We just lived through this all together. And there's enough information out there in the public domain that people can look at it and go, okay, they didn't spend enough on vegetation management, right? Tons of trees are down. You can drive through Nashville and see that this is what caused this. You can talk about scaling up, lack of scaling up. You can look at forecasts. When do we get that in? You can look at how many linemen do we have? Are we understaffed? You can look at all of those things. But a very simple one is vegetation management you can look at. And all of these things come down to management decisions. And who is in charge of that is the CEO. And nobody's really being honest about it. And so then when I see the reaction to it, it's not to say, we welcome this independent review that the board has ordered that I'm looking forward to. I want to make sure that it's truly independent. Number one, they have not chosen a vendor yet. The board does that, but so I'm really waiting to see who the vendor is going to be. But so instead of saying we're really looking forward to this independent review, I have asked for that to be expanded, not only to the review of this response, but let's look at the entire organization, the structure, the technology, resilience, all of those things. If you're in there, go ahead and do the deep dive, right? But
can I ask a simplistic question?
Sure.
If the appointed board is not able to do a review, then what are they for?
No, they are.
No. You said they're appointing someone.
No, they're hiring an outside company to do it.
Why couldn't the Metro Council just do that? Why does the board exist if they can't do the review on their own? If they can't do an impartial analysis of the person that they hired to put in management?
You mean for them to actually go in and review it themselves as a technical person?
What are they for? What do they do?
Well, so I'll push back on that a little bit. So I would prefer for someone like NERC to come in, which is the North American Electric Resilience Corporation, that has that. They are the organization that has the regulatory expertise for grids and resilience, all that stuff, to come in and look at and see. You're not going to find necessarily a board member or a corporate structure to do that. So they have ordered that.
I'm not against it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not against independent review. I'm against the board. I'm against the.
I'm not saying I'm against the.
I'm against their existence because I don't believe the board does anything. I don't believe they do a single thing. They can't fire anybody.
They can fire the CEO.
That they hired.
Correct.
So they would have to admit that they hired the wrong person.
Correct.
In order to do that. And they're not going to do that. They're not going to do it. I mean, Courtney, I have no faith in that. I don't understand why the Metro Council can't absorb every responsibility that the board has. And at least the Metro Council are answerable to the people.
True. We have filed a resolution requesting that the board fire the CEO.
The council has.
Correct.
Has it been voted on?
No, because we haven't had the meeting yet. But it has been filed with the clerk, and it is public record. The agenda just came out today. So it'll be on Tuesday's meeting.
Okay.
And I am going to request a roll call vote, meaning you are going to be on the record with your name next to it.
I like that. I mean, I dig that. It's a level of bureaucracy that I genuinely, people think that I'm just being Mr. I genuinely don't understand. If the municipality is owned by the city of Nashville, if the people that we elect to make the governing decisions in Nashville are sitting on that council, then why do we have the mayor appoint a board that is independent of the council that makes all of these operational decisions based on their hiring of the CEO that impact the lives of the people of Nashville? And the people of Nashville don't have any direct say by calling up their Metro Councilor, because when they call up their Metro Councilor, the Metro Councilor says, I can't do anything because that was a board decision. It's a circular level of bureaucracy that's infuriating to me.
Which is why I say I would rather handle the brain tumor instead of the symptom of it, which is the headache.
Yeah.
So that's exactly. I think we need to look at the entire structure of it. It's going to require a charter amendment or whatever it's going to be nonsense. But so, and I was on a roll and you completely derailed me.
Here's what we do. We reset. I'm sorry. I get very excited about this subject. 23 after the hour. Our guest is Courtney Johnston. If you have any questions or comments, get in here, because there was a meeting last night. Questions were asked. A few of them were answered. Some. Is that fair?
Now I remember where I was.
Oh, did you? Okay, well, keep that thought. We'll be back in a moment on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. A very in-depth conversation with our good friend Metro Councilor Courtney Johnston, discussing the meeting that happened last night, where we had questions asked and some questions answered regarding Nashville Electric and their build-up and then response to the ice storm that was. You were on a roll, and I interrupted you, and I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. So where I was going with that was, so they've ordered this independent review, looking forward to that, because I think that's where we will, assuming that it is independent and thorough, we will find out exactly what happened and hopefully get recommendations on what investments we need to make sure that doesn't happen again. So that's all I think people really want to hear is, hey, we admit this was not great. This was awful. We screwed up. We're gonna find out what went wrong. We're going to let you know what went wrong, and we're going to fix it. We don't want this to ever happen again. People just want some genuine answers and truthfulness from people. And instead, what they've done is hired a ton of lobbyists to protect themselves and to lobby the council to try to protect the CEO's job. SEIU has been lobbying to protect the CEO's job. It's just, and I'm going.
Finn Partners is.
Finn Partners has been there for a while, but
is it true that it's a 3-year, $10 million contract?
I have not seen that. If you've seen it, I haven't seen the actual contract. I know that it's multi-million dollars, and I know that it is multi-year, but that was also in place well before the storm.
Right.
They have added since the storm a lot.
Might I ask that the Metro Council inquire, or this independent body inquire, as to what the purpose of that relationship was? Because if it was was it supposed to be forward-facing? Was it supposed to act as a public communications?
The Finn Partners?
Yeah.
It's my understanding that was supposed to be their public facing for dealing with just social media stuff and just in general communications and most companies have that.
Right, because they don't have,
they have 3 people on staff that handles communications, and then they have this PR firm.
Who is their communications point person, to your knowledge, at NES? Is it Brent Baker?
I know he's the vice president of something. Now, who I go to is, I don't know, to be honest with you. If there's a communications person, for media relations,
I'm just trying to figure out. So the ratepayers are paying that $10 million nut on Finn Partners, and I'm just trying to figure out what the purpose of that relationship was. Because if the purpose was to better communicate with the public about NES and issues like this, then that's a failure, and Finn Partners needs to pay
contract.
That. You know what I mean? They need to pay that money back if it's crisis management.
Yeah, I could pull up that contract here, because that contract is directly with either NES or the Power Board. So I can pull that up on our portal and see exactly what the scope of that contract is. What I have not been able to find are these other contracts, and that's why I asked them last night. I know that you've entered into these contracts. but I can't find them, which means I think they've probably done it as a subcontract of these others so that it's not subject to FOIA. Anyway, my purpose is it's disingenuous, right? For free, you can just tell people the truth.
Yeah.
For free, you can say, we're going to get to the bottom of it. We're going to fix it. We're going to do better.
Do you feel like that happened last night?
No.
Courtney Johnston with us. We'll get to some of your questions momentarily on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, generously agreeing to take your telephone calls with her time. It is Courtney Johnston. I don't know why I'm saying it that way. I don't know what I'm doing. It's the Matt Murphy radio show, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Courtney Johnston is with us. I'm just happy I haven't mangled your name yet. You want to talk to a couple of the folks? So the bottom line is there were questions and answers and not really a lot of.
They weren't as hard-hitting questions as I would have wanted, but at the same time, I don't know that we're going to get true information on the failures and what should have happened as far as response or, system capabilities and yada yada until we get the results of the review.
And how long is that going to take?
I asked that question on Timeline, and she said she meaning Teresa, said she has asked for that to come back within 90 days. However, they have not chosen the vendor quite yet, so I would hope that would happen in the coming days. It shouldn't take that long to have it be done, but
how much money does the CEO of NES make?
When I asked our finance, they couldn't get a hard answer on it, which seemed odd to me. She estimated $350,000.
Okay. Once again,
I know it's odd.
So your finance person with the city of Nashville cannot tell you directly how much money the CEO of NES, which is owned by the city of Nashville, is paid. Correct.
Yep, because we don't. Their budget is totally separate. It's not part of our operating budget.
Well, but y'all.
I know.
John is next up. Hey, John, what's up?
Hey, I'm concerned about when is Metro going to start cleanup of trees that are down and limbs. I live in the South Fork subdivision close to the Hermitage. It's border of Lakewood and Old Hickory, and we've got trees that are down on the Metro property, some of which have damaged the wooden plank fences on some of the properties, like on the Conway Court subdivision. And I called Hub Nashville several days ago. I just haven't seen anybody even attempting to do any cleanup of debris.
John, good question.
Yeah, John, thanks for your question. So we have brought in several contractors to start. We're asking people for their own items, debris, to bring it to the curb, and they're going to be making several passes probably for the next month. There is no schedule because whatever schedule they wouldn't be able to keep to anyway, and so they're just going to be going through the county multiple times to pick up things that are on the curb. The normal restrictions as far as length and width of that debris is out the window. Whatever's on the curb is going to be picked up. It just has to be vegetation debris, not trash. If you're talking about Metro-owned property like a parcel in the yard, something to pick up, that will probably come later because we're focusing our efforts on things along the right-of-way.
Good question, John. Michelle is next up with a question or comment about NES. Michelle, you're on with Courtney Johnston.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Excuse me. I live in Hendersonville. We have no one to represent us. So really, my concern is that things need to be regrouped and restructured on who's represented and who's not represented. I've lived in 4 states. I lived in Indiana, ice storms all the time, never out without power this long. I've lived in hurricane area, never without power this long. There's not enough staff. We've heard that. I've listened to talk radio. I know that. We've had help turned away. We've had trucks sitting around. We need people held accountable, and evidently only Metro can fire the CEO. In my humble opinion, it's just my opinion, she needs fired. And I don't see her even taking any accountability. We all knew the storm was coming. We should have been prepared. Lives were lost. People were without power for 11 hours. There's people on oxygen. People had to stay in hotels.
11 hours, 11 days. Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
and it goes to the heart of the matter, Michelle. And I don't mean to cut you short.
You're fine. Thank you.
But yeah, thank you, because I've got
Thank
so
you,
many
Michelle.
people. So how did it happen? And that people outside of Davidson County who have no control over who their mayor is going to be are under the umbrella of a monopoly like NES, and it doesn't seem like they have any direct representation. It just seems like an odd setup.
I have no idea. I had somebody ask me that. How did they get roped into it, and how could they get out? I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how, from a circuit perspective, do you buy the circuit? Do you acquire the circuit or the substation that handles? I don't know how that works.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure, like I said earlier, I'm sure there's a will, there's a way, but I don't know how it happened in the first place. Did they opt into it because it was a better deal before? Or I don't know. I really don't know that.
Let me talk to James next. James, you're on with Courtney Johnston. What's up, James?
Good afternoon. I got a couple of quick questions, and then I'll make my point. Would you take your child to see Matt Murphy for medical care? Of course not. Would you take your car to your dentist to get it worked on? Of course not. You have college professors running the electrical department instead of engineers, arborists, and CPAs. Why do you think they have their problem? These people are clueless and could not tell you a single thing about how electricity works or the theory of it.
Don't disagree.
James, it's a problem that is a systemic one. It's one that I keep going back to. What are our parameters? If the mayor is appointing these individuals that are on the board, and I've requested the mayor come back on with us now that the meat of the storm is done. To his credit, he came on right after the storm popped. He gave us a report. He gave us an analysis. We haven't had him back on since. We're trying to get him back on to answer some of these questions. What are your parameters when you're selecting a board member? Do you believe some of these board members need to go? How does that functionally happen if you believe that? If the board is responsible for the hiring and firing of the CEO, are they not then responsible for the failures of the CEO that they hired indirectly? So these are good questions to ask. Let's talk to Jeff, who is next up. Jeff, good afternoon.
Hey, Matt. Well, I've got more of a suggestion than anything else, I guess. That
just go quick, because I'm trying to get to as many questions with Courtney as I possibly can.
Okay. Wouldn't it be more feasible, like in heavy vegetated areas, to put underground lines in where you're not having to trim the trees every 3 to 5 years, when underground electric lines usually last 30 to 50 years, and the money they would save from the budgeting and everything else to keep those lines in the ground and be storm-proof, basically.
I wasn't around. Well, Jeff, I wasn't around, and this is a great suggestion. I wasn't around back in 1994, but people who were have hit me up and tell me that in the aftermath of that storm, a lot of suggestions were being made about utilizing underground lines as opposed to above-ground poles. And apparently not a lot of that happened?
Well, so they started discussing that, and what they decided was that new subdivisions would be undergrounded.
Okay.
But not retro. And when I was first elected in 2019, we had a meeting with NES, and I was like, can we please start talking about this? And it was completely dismissed. The fiscal note to that was just extremely exorbitant. We can't even talk about it. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Well, now they are looking at doing that in certainly some areas, just like this caller is talking about, in those certain areas, at least to start with, that have high lots of vegetation, and so strategically looking at that. So I'm glad that we are now, I mean, it's obviously taken how many storms and how many this, how many that, we're finally saying, oh, maybe we should start looking at undergrounding. So.
Well, look, and, leave it. I'll be the one that points fingers and yells and screams about what has happened. But if the result is we get action on something like that,
Right.
then, I mean, at least we get action
Right.
on something like
The
that.
whole purpose is to improve outcomes, and whatever that takes, that's what we need to do.
Billy, we're going to go quickly with you on the subject of NES. Billy, what's up?
I do not understand. Just because it's called Nashville Electric Service doesn't mean it's Davidson County. I don't understand why, when they represent power to 6 different counties, it's not taken over by the state and it be mandated that there's equal board for equal representation on the board. It seems ridiculous because if you really get down to it, then you're going to have people in Nashville they're going to be pandering. The ones on the board are going to be pandering to Davidson County instead of worrying about the other people if things got bad.
I agree with you. I also don't think that the board setup in general, I mean, you could make the board bigger and have every county represented. I still think you have the same problem where you are appointed by a political body, and at that point you're still a political appointee. I would rather just restructure where you have qualified regulatory authority.
And Billy, thank you for the call. It was recommended or suggested by the Speaker of the House, Cameron Sexton, when he last appeared on our show, I think it was Monday, that perhaps MTE, I think is a co-op, perhaps looking into that method that brings at least the appointment of any board closer to the ratepayer, because the ratepayers in a co-op obviously elect the board themselves. Any thought on that?
I will say we have a cabin in DeKalb County that I think it's Middle Tennessee Electric. I can't remember, but I know that it's a co-op. And I will say it works extremely well. We went through the storm. That the cabin did not lose power or anything for 1 second. They do a very good job of response. They do a very good job of vegetation management, and our rates are really low. I'll say that. We've been part of the voting thing, so in a way, it's a little bit similar to your point. It's a lot closer to the ratepayer versus it being a political. If you're appointed by a political body, it's a political appointee, and there's always going to be that nuance there that, to me, is not necessarily productive.
What just synopsize last night in the minute or two that we have left? Synopsize last night and tell us what next steps are.
So, as far as what's going to be meaningful is the next step is that independent review. There is a resolution that has been filed. I have signed on to it requesting the board fire the CEO. I think what people want to see is some accountability, but at the same time, regardless of if you could pinpoint, yes, she did this or no, she did not do this, we depend on power every second of every day. It is an essential utility and it needs to be trusted, and people don't trust her leadership. And so once you have that trust diminished, at that point, your presence is not productive and it's time to move on. That is the purpose for me supporting the resolution. And so I just think it's time to move on. So that's that next step. The other next step is I think that regardless of whether the state steps in or whatever, we've got to look at how we are providing oversight to NES. And I want it to not just be a small little temporary fix. I think just the entire structure of it needs to be fixed, and everyone needs to be either represented, but I also just don't like the idea of the politicized nature of it. There needs to be some type of regulatory authority over it, and right now there is none.
Courtney, you're always gracious with your time. You're always you're immediately responsive to the constituents that you serve and beyond, and we thank you for that.
Thank you for having me.
Courtney Johnston, everyone, Metro Counselor. We'll be back in a moment, 54 after the hour. Our good friend Cameron Smith coming up next.